93% of lost dogs are found. But what happens next, the desperate negotiation, the life-altering gratitude, the legally binding promise of a reward, is a story almost never told. This is about the one dog that didn't just find its way home. It unraveled a life. For freelance dog walker Alex Carter, it was just another Tuesday in Central Park when a dog worth more than her yearly salary bolted past her. The address on the collar led to a penthouse, and to a billionaire whose gratitude would rewrite every rule she knew. What begins as a simple good deed soon becomes a legally binding contract, where saying no to a reward might be the most dangerous choice of all. The world of a professional dog walker is one of invisible calculations. You learn the price of every breed, the temperament of every owner, and the exact value of 15 minutes. For Alex, that calculus was simple: $30 per walk, 60 if the dog was difficult, and the constant anxiety of a missed text that could end a contract. Her life was built on the leashes of other people's pets, a studio apartment that smelled perpetually of wet fur and disinfectant, a phone that buzzed not with friends, but with last-minute cancellations from clients who saw her as a utility, not a person. She knew which dogs had allergies, which ones were scared of skateboards, and which owners would tip if you sent a cute photo. She did not know that her entire life was about to be appraised by a man who valued loyalty above all else. The dog was a Lagotto Romagnolo, a rare Italian truffle hound. Alex recognized the breed instantly: tight curls, expressive eyes, a sense of intelligent mischief. It was barreling through a flock of pigeons, its custom leather lead dragging behind it. No owner in sight. Standard protocol said check for a tag, call the number, wait. But this collar was saddle leather, its brass tag engraved with a single line: if found, call Marcus, and an address that wasn't an apartment number. It was a building name, the Orion. In the trade, the Orion wasn't an address, it was a verdict. A 70-story spire of glass and steel overlooking the park, home to finance titans, tech founders, and fortunes so large they were measured in geopolitical influence. The kind of building where the lobby had its own art curator. Taking a dog like this to its door wasn't a good deed. It was a delivery, a transaction. What Alex didn't know was that, in the eyes of the law, the moment she read the tag and decided to act, she had entered into a silent negotiation. The lobby was a cathedral of quiet wealth. The security guard didn't ask her name. He'd been given a description. He nodded her toward a private elevator with a single button, PH, the penthouse. As the elevator ascended, the dog, who she'd started calling Leo, sat calmly as if going home. The doors opened not into a hallway, but into a foyer larger than her entire apartment. The air smelled of lemon wood polish and something else: nervous energy. He was waiting, Marcus Thorne, late 40s, with the disciplined posture of a former athlete and the watchful eyes of a chess master. He wasn't wearing a suit but tailored trousers and a sweater that probably cost more than Alex's car. His gratitude was immediate, profound, and unnervingly physical. He dropped to a knee, not for her but for the dog, burying his face in its curls for a long moment. When he stood, his eyes were clear, but his voice was thick. He was only gone 20 minutes. It felt like a year. This is where the first critical rule was broken. In the frantic, emotional moments of reunion, experts warn owners not to promise anything specific. Grief and relief make people reckless. Marcus Thorne was not a reckless man. He was a precise one. "Name your reward," he said, his gaze fixed on her. "Anything, it's yours." Alex, flustered, gave the polite, expected refusal. "Oh no, really, just glad he's safe." It was the script everyone follows, but Marcus Thorne did not follow scripts. He studied her, her worn sneakers, her practical jacket, the fatting logo of a community college on her backpack. He saw the calculation she lived by, and he decided to rewrite the equation. "Wait here," he said. He returned not with cash but with a small, sealed envelope. "Then accept this, not as payment, as a thank you." The envelope was heavy, cream-colored, and utterly blank. Before she could refuse again, the elevator door was opening for her, a silent dismissal. Down in the glittering lobby, beneath the cold gaze of $1 million sculpture, she opened it. Inside was a key, not a house key. A sleek black key fob with a single emblem, a stylized T, and a note handwritten on thick cardstock. For the unforeseen errands, the car is yours, indefinitely. MT. A reward is a closed loop. Money is exchanged, gratitude is acknowledged, the story ends. This was not a reward. This was an opening. A leased luxury car registered in her name with all fees prepaid for a year is not a gift you can return to a lost and found. It is a financial instrument, a liability, an anchor. Confused and overwhelmed, Alex did what any normal person would do. She tried to give it back. Her call went not to an assistant but straight to Marcus. His response was calm, final. The offer was made in front of witnesses, my security team, the building staff. A unilateral contract was formed the moment you took the envelope. To reject it now isn't polite, Alex, it's a breach. The legal term hung in the air, cold and heavy. He wasn't threatening, he was educating. In the world he operated in, a promise was an asset, and her refusal was a debt. For a week the car sat unused outside her apartment, a gleaming spaceship parked next to dented sedans. She researched Marcus Thorne, founder of Thorne Capital, a venture firm known for ruthless exits and unparalleled loyalty to its inner circle. He was divorced, no children. The dog, Leo, was his sole constant companion, a gift from a business partner in Italy years prior. The articles spoke of his brilliance, his privacy, and a famous incident where a competitor who reneged on a handshake deal found his entire supply chain mysteriously frozen within 72 hours. Thorne didn't sue. He simply demonstrated the cost of a broken promise. Then the second envelope arrived. Hand-delivered by a uniformed driver at 7 a.m., this one contained a simple invitation to a charity gala at the Museum of Modern Art. The note read, "My plus one has fallen ill. An obligation requires attendance. Your presence would settle my debt to you. Black tie. Car will collect at 8. It was signed with the same sharp initials, MT. This was the trap, elegant and inescapable. The first gift, the car, was a weight. This invitation was a test. To decline would be to insult him publicly, to make him the man who couldn't even secure a date for a charity event. In the social calculus of his world, that was a vulnerability. And for a man like Marcus Thorne, a vulnerability was a threat. Alex stood in her tiny kitchen, holding the thick card stock, realizing with dawning horror that there was no way out. Saying no had ceased to be an option the moment she picked up that dog's leash. She went to the gala. The gala was a lesson in a different kind of currency. Not money, but attention. And from the moment Alex stepped out of the car on Marcus Thorne's arm, she was the most valuable, scrutinized asset in the room. Her dress, selected by a discreet personal shopper he'd sent, cost more than her student debt. It was armor, and she felt like an imposter in every stitch. He introduced her simply. "This is Alex." No explanation. No, the dog walker. The ambiguity was a weapon. Powerful men shook her hand, their eyes flickering with calculation, trying to place her. Their partners offered brittle smiles, mentally cataloging her jewelry, which was also on loan. She was playing a role in a play where she hadn't read the script. Marcus was her director, guiding her through conversations with a light touch on her back, finishing sentences for her when she faltered. It was possessive, it was protective, it was a display. Halfway through the evening, a man with a politician's smile approached. "Marcus, and who's this?" Marcus's hand didn't leave her back. "Alexandra, she's been invaluable." The man's smile didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "I see. Well, any friend of Marcus Thorne is a friend worth having." As he walked away, Marcus leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. "He owns 3 media conglomerates. He just decided not to run a story about a parking ticket you got last year. A courtesy." The world tilted. He hadn't just researched her. He was actively managing her life, erasing blemishes she didn't know were visible. The ride home was silent. The city lights blurred past the tinted windows. "You handled that well," Marcus said, not looking at her. "It wasn't a test, but everything was a test." When the car stopped at her apartment, he didn't let her leave immediately. "The car," he said. "You haven't used it." It was an observation, not a question. "It doesn't feel like mine," she admitted, the truest thing she'd said all night. He nodded slowly. "Ownership is a mindset, Alex. The key is in your hand. The contract is filed. The only thing stopping you is a story you're telling yourself, that you don't belong in it." He reached over, his fingers briefly covering hers on the key fob. "Change the story." The next morning the car was still there, but now it felt different. It felt like a challenge. She got in. The leather seat embraced her. The engine was a whisper. She drove to a client's house, a nervous corgi in a brownstone. The client, a harried graphic designer, gaped at the car. "Whoa, new ride?" Alex just smiled. Something like that. The power dynamic had shifted. She was no longer just the help, she was a question mark. The gifts became a tide. Not envelopes, but solutions. A notice about a looming dental bill she'd been ignoring was mysteriously paid. Her struggling laptop was replaced with a new one left at her door with a note: "Tools shouldn't hinder work." Her landlord, notorious for ignoring repair requests, suddenly fixed her leaky faucet and repainted the hallway. When she called to thank him, he sounded nervous. "Just happy to help, Miss Carter. Everything good?" "Great." Marcus didn't ask for dates. He created scenarios, a text: "Leo misses you. I'm at the office until 8. The doorman will let you in if you'd like to visit him." She went, of course. The penthouse was empty, silent. Leo was thrilled. She sat on the monumental sofa, the dog in her lap, looking out at the city. She felt like a ghost in a museum. On the way out, the doorman handed her a small bag. "From Mr. Thorne." Inside was a book on Italian dog breeds and a second, smaller book on vintage cars. The message was clear: understand your world and understand the tool I've given you. Then came the invitation that erased the last pretense of formality. A text on a rainy Thursday: "Dinner here, 7, no crowd, just conversation." It wasn't a question, it was a decree. She wore her own clothes this time, jeans, a simple sweater. He answered the door himself, wearing similar casual wear. Leo spun in circles. The table was set for 2 in the kitchen, not the formal dining room. He cooked pasta, something simple. This was the pivot. The billionaire in the sweater stirring sauce was a different man. The armor was off. He talked about his first business, a failed app developed in his college dorm. He talked about his ex-wife, not with bitterness, but with a tired sadness. She wanted a different life, one with windows that opened figuratively. "This," he gestured around the sleek kitchen, "felt like a prison to her. To me, it's a control center." He looked at her. "What does it feel like to you?" It was the most dangerous question he'd asked. "It feels quiet," she said carefully. "Like the outside world can't get in." He smiled, a genuine one that reached his eyes. "Exactly." Then he told her about Leo. The dog wasn't just from a business partner. The partner, Antonio, was his oldest friend. They started out together. Antonio had died suddenly, a heart attack at 42. Leo was the last living thing Antonio had loved. "Losing him," Marcus said, his voice low, staring at the dog sleeping at their feet, "would have been like losing Antonio twice. You didn't just return a pet, Alex. You returned a memory. You returned a piece of a man I owed everything to." The emotional calculus changed instantly. This wasn't about power or control. It was about debt, loyalty, and a grief so profound it had to be protected at all costs. His extravagant gratitude wasn't arrogance. It was the only currency he knew how to use to balance a spiritual ledger. In that moment, the scary, powerful man vanished, replaced by a lonely one clinging to a truffle hound. The shift in their relationship was immediate and profound. He stopped orchestrating scenarios. He started asking for her opinion. "Leo seems sluggish, what do you think?" Or, "The art in the hallway feels cold. What would you put there?" He was letting her in, not as a guest, but as a consultant to his life. She started spending afternoons there, working on her laptop while Leo snoozed beside her. She began to rearrange the books on a shelf that was clearly never touched. He came home, noticed, and said nothing. He just smiled. He gave her a key, not to the penthouse but to a private dog run on the building's rooftop garden. "For when I'm traveling," he said. "He likes the routine." The key came with a new phone. "A secure line," he explained. "My number, the vet, the security desk are pre-programmed for emergencies." The phone was a black slab, no brand name. It felt heavy with implication. She met his inner circle, not at a gala but at a private lunch at his club. 3 men, all like variations of him, sharp, successful, guarded. They were polite, but their assessment was clinical. One, a man named David with ice blue eyes, asked her pointed questions about the pet care industry, about liability insurance, about client acquisition. It felt like an interview. After, David pulled Marcus aside. She saw fragments of their conversation. David's concerned frown. Marcus's dismissive shake of the head. David's final, clear words as they walked back. Just be sure, Marcus, you're not just bringing her into your home, you're bringing her into the ledger. The ledger, the word echoed. Later, she asked him about it. They were on the rooftop, Leo chasing a ball. Marcus's face closed off. David is cautious. He manages risk. He sees everything as an asset or a liability. He looked at her. I don't. But the seed was planted. She was in the ledger now. Her value was being assessed. The escalation came not from him, but from the outside world. A paparazzi photo, blurry, taken from a rooftop across the park. Her in jeans and a hoodie leaving the Orion with Leo on a leash. The caption in a gossip tabloid the next day, mystery woman at billionaire bachelor's door, who is the new walker in Marcus Thorne's life. Her phone, her real phone, exploded. Clients, friends, her estranged aunt, all asking variations of the same question. What are you doing? Marcus's response was swift and brutal. The photo and article vanished from the tabloid's website by that afternoon. A cease and desist letter was sent to the photographer, but the damage was done. Her anonymity, her old life, was shattered. She was now publicly connected to him, a fact, an entry in the public ledger. That night he came to her apartment for the first time. He stood in her small living room looking profoundly out of place. I'm sorry, he said, and he meant it. This is my world, the scrutiny, it's part of the architecture. He proposed a solution, a new apartment, in a building he owned, safe, secure, with a dedicated parking space for the car. It's not a gift, he said, preempting her refusal. It's a security upgrade for you, because you're now associated with me. And that comes with a cost. Let me cover the cost. It was the final, logical step in a chain that began with a dog leash. First the car, then the social protection, then the emotional integration, now physical security. Each step felt inevitable. Each refusal seemed petulant, dangerous. She was being upgraded, version by version, into a person who could survive in his ecosystem. She packed a single bag to stay at the new apartment temporarily. It was beautiful, minimalist, and utterly silent. No neighbor noise. It felt like another safe room. As she put her toothbrush in the pristine bathroom, she saw it. A small framed photo on a shelf she hadn't noticed. It was of her, taken weeks ago before any of this. She was in the park, laughing, her head thrown back, surrounded by a pack of dogs she was walking. It was a candid, beautiful shot. And it was taken from a distance. The blood drained from her face. He'd had her photographed, before the paparazzi, before the gala, before he'd ever spoken to her beyond that first thank you. The surveillance hadn't started after she entered his life. It was the prerequisite. He had seen her, selected her, and then arranged for his dog to need finding. The lost dog wasn't an accident. It was the first move. The photo changed everything. The chance meeting was a chess move. The gratitude was a strategy. And Alex was now a piece on a board she didn't understand, playing a game where the only rule was that Marcus Thorne never, ever lost. She didn't confront him, that's what he would expect. Instead, she began her own investigation. She started with the dog. Lagato Romagnolos were rare, especially in the city. She called every breeder within 200 miles. On the third call, she hit a wall. A breeder in Connecticut remembered a puppy sold to a Mr. Thorne's representative 5 years ago. But then she paused. Although, come to think of it, a man with an Italian accent called a few months back. Said he was from Thorne's office, asking about the dog's medical records. Wanted to know about its temperament, if it was prone to bolting. I thought it was odd since they had the records already. The call had been placed 2 weeks before Leo got lost. Next, she dug into her own life. She reviewed the week before finding Leo. Had anything been off? A client cancellation that now seemed suspicious. A regular who suddenly went on vacation, freeing up her afternoon for the fateful park walk. The maintenance in her building that closed the usual side entrance, forcing her to take a route that cut through the exact area where Leo appeared. Small, insignificant details that together formed a frightening pattern. Her path had been gently herded. She used the secure phone he gave her for one purpose, to call David, his cautious friend. He answered on the second ring, his voice neutral. "Alex, is Marcus all right?" "I need to understand the ledger, David." There was a long silence. "You should talk to Marcus." "I'm talking to you. Am I an asset or a liability?" Another pause, heavier. "You're an entry, a significant one. Marcus closed a deal with Antonio's family because of you. They saw the photo of you with Leo in the park. They interpreted your care as a sign of Marcus's continued loyalty to their brother's memory. It was the final assurance they needed to sign over their shares. That deal was worth $170 million. The number hung in the air, astronomical. "So you tell me, Alex, what does that make you?" "An asset. A $170 million asset." Her kindness had been monetized. Her connection to the dog was a signal to a grieving family that Marcus was a man of heart, a man who would protect what Antonio loved. She had been a living, breathing character reference. She went to the penthouse, the photo in her hand. Marcus was in his study. He took one look at her face, then at the photo, and his shoulders sank. He didn't deny it. He just said, "Sit down." The confession was clinical. After Antonio died, his family was fractured, suspicious. The business they co-owned was in limbo. They doubted Marcus's motives, saw him as a vulture. He needed to demonstrate a quality money couldn't buy, authentic care. He needed a proxy. He had teams that could find anything. They found her. Her background was perfect. Orphan, self-reliant, kind to animals, fluent in the language of service without entitlement. She was relatable. "I didn't manufacture your character, Alex. I discovered it. And then I created a situation where it would shine." "You used me." "I selected you," he corrected, his voice firm but not unkind. "And I elevated you. The car, the apartment, the protection, that wasn't part of the deal. That was real. The moment I met you, the plan changed. The asset became a person." It was the worst possible thing he could have said. It meant his feelings, the connection she'd started to believe was real, were just a more sophisticated layer of the manipulation. The emotional calculus was a fiction. She was a leveraged buyout. She stood to leave. "Wait," he said, and for the first time she heard genuine fear in his voice. "Sit down, Alex, please, because what I did to bring you in is nothing compared to what others will do to get you out." He opened a drawer and slid a file across the desk. It contained photos, but not of her. Of a woman with dark hair, smiling, holding a small dog. "Elise," he said. 3 years ago, she was a pianist I was involved with. A rival firm thought she was a vulnerability. They didn't come after me. They offered her a recording contract. An exclusive 7-figure deal. All she had to do was wear a wire to one dinner." He tapped another photo. This one was of Elise, but her face was pale, her eyes hollow, boarding a plane to Europe. "She took the deal. I found out. I let her go. I even let her keep the money. But she lost everything. Her nerve, her talent, her peace. She lives in Switzerland now, afraid of her own shadow." He looked at Alex, his eyes deadly serious. "You are now a publicly known variable in my life. You think my world is dangerous because of what I might do? You're wrong. It's dangerous because of what people who want to hurt me will do to get to you. The car, the apartment, the security, that isn't generosity, it's fortification. You are in the castle now, Alex, and the siege is coming." As if on cue, his computer chimed. He looked at the screen and his face went cold. He turned it toward her. It was a financial news alert. "Thorn Capital's bid for Verd Technologies in jeopardy. Sources say key investor questioning Thorn. Distractions." The article didn't name her, but it didn't have to. It mentioned recent personal life developments and questions of focus. "That's David's rival on the board," Marcus said, his voice a low growl. He's using you as a wedge. He'll try to pressure me by pressuring you. He'll dig. He'll find your parents' debt, your academic probation, anything. He'll leak it. He'll make you look like a gold digger or worse, a planted asset from a competitor. He'll make me look weak for being attached to you. He stood up, packing. You have two choices. You can leave. Walk out that door, take the car, the apartment, a severance package that will set you up for life. And you will be alone with a target on your back from every direction. Or you can stay, and we fight them together. It was no choice at all. Leaving was surrender to an enemy she'd never met. Staying was surrender to the man who'd engineered her entire reality. But at least with him, she had resources. At least with him, she understood the devil. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice small. A fierce, proud light sparked in his eyes. "We escalate. We show them that you're not a distraction, you're an advantage." His plan was audacious. He would name her the head of a new philanthropic arm of Thorn Capital, the Antonio Foundation for Animal Welfare and Support for Service Workers. Her first project, a citywide lost pet recovery network, using the research and resources she knew firsthand. He would put her in front of cameras in boardrooms with a title and a budget. He would transform the narrative from billionaire's mystery girlfriend to visionary partner. It was the ultimate countermove. He was taking the very thing that made her vulnerable, her identity as a dog walker, and weaponizing it into a position of power. He was making her untouchable by making her official, by making her his. The next 72 hours were a blur of lawyers, publicists, and stylists. She was given talking points, a biography that glossed over the orchestrated meeting, a wardrobe that screamed executive philanthropist. She was prepped for a joint interview with a major business magazine. The night before the interview, Marcus came to her new apartment. He didn't bring flowers. He brought a contract. "This is the foundation's operating agreement. Your salary, your discretionary budget, your reporting structure." He also placed a second, thinner document beside it. "And this is a personal agreement. A non-disclosure agreement, yes, but also a commitment from me to you. It outlines my responsibilities for your security in perpetuity regardless of our personal relationship. It creates a trust for you. It's not a prenuptial, it's a promise. Signing it means you understand the stakes, and you choose to stay in the game." She read the personal document. It was breathtaking in its scope. It guaranteed her financial independence for life. It guaranteed her security for life, in exchange for her cooperation, her loyalty, and her silence. It was, in cold legal terms, the formalization of the gilded cage, but it was also a drawbridge she could pull up herself. It gave her power. She signed both. The next morning, she walked into the interview on Marcus's arm, wearing a suit that felt like her own skin. She answered questions about animal recovery rates, about microchipping, about the emotional toll on service workers. She was poised, intelligent, passionate. She watched the reporter's skepticism melt into admiration. She watched Marcus watch her with a look of undisguised triumph. They had done it. They had turned the narrative. 2 days later, the magazine cover hit. The Billionaire and the Beacon, how Marcus Thorne and Alex Carter are rewriting the playbook. Inside, a full-page photo of them with Leo, the perfect modern family. The siege, it seemed, had been repelled. That's when the third envelope arrived. Not at her apartment, but at the Foundation's new office. It was addressed to her in messy block letters. Inside was a single, grainy photograph. It showed a younger Marcus in his 20s standing with 2 other men on a dock. One of the men was Antonio, smiling, his arm around Marcus. The other man was unfamiliar, glaring at the camera. On the back, scrawled in red ink, "Ask him about the boat. Ask him what really happened to Antonio. Then see if you still feel safe in your castle." The ground fell away. The story of Antonio's heart attack, the tragic loss, the sacred memory, it was a story. And someone was claiming it had a different ending. The ledger didn't just contain assets and liabilities. It contained secrets. And she had just been sent a key to the darkest one. The castle walls weren't just to keep threats out. They were to keep a secret in. And as Alex held the photograph that threatened to topple everything, She realized the billionaire's gratitude wasn't just about repaying a debt. It was about burying one. She didn't go to Marcus. She went to the only person who seemed to operate outside his control, his mother. Elena Thorne lived in a sun-drenched conservatory on the estate, surrounded by orchids. She took one look at the photo and her hands, which had been pruning a plant, stilled. The warmth drained from her face. "Where did you get this?" "It was sent to me. Who is the other man?" Elena sat down heavily. His name was Silas, Antonio's brother. The story she told was a different one. The three men, Marcus, Antonio, and Silas, had started together. The boat wasn't a pleasure craft, it was a smuggling vessel running art and antiquities in their early, desperate years. A deal went bad, a fight broke out. "Antonio fell," Elena whispered. "He hit his head. It was an accident, but Silas believed Marcus pushed him. There were no witnesses, only Marcus's word against his. In the heart attack. A story, a convenient one. The family accepted it because Marcus paid them, generously. He gave them shares, he built the foundation in Antonio's name. He bought their silence and their forgiveness, all except Silas. Silas took the money and vanished, vowing revenge. So the foundational grief, the sacred loss that Marcus had built his loyalty around, was a lie. A covered-up accident that may have been manslaughter. The ledger's very first entry was written in blood. Armed with this, Alex finally confronted Marcus. She laid the photo on his desk in the study. For a long time, he said nothing. He just stared at the image of his younger self, flanked by the two brothers. "Who told you?" he finally asked, his voice hollow. "It doesn't matter. Is it true?" He didn't deny it. He didn't confirm it. He told a third story. "We were young, stupid. The boat was rocking. We were arguing about money, about a girl, about everything. Antonio lost his balance. He fell. I reached for him, so did Silas. We both watched him." He trailed off, closing his eyes. "Silas blamed me because I was the one who called the meeting, because I was the one who wanted out of the smuggling. He said my hesitation, my moral crisis, caused the distraction that killed his brother. He opened his eyes, and they were filled with a torment so raw it was terrifying. Maybe he was right. The truth, it seemed, was a shapeshifter. An accident, yes, but one layered with guilt, blame, and a lifetime of penance in the form of a dog named Leo. Marcus's entire empire, his isolation, his obsessive control. It was all a monument to that single, terrible moment on a boat. "Silas is back," Alex said. "He sent this. He's not after your money, he's after your story. He wants to destroy the myth of Marcus Thorne, the loyal friend." Marcus nodded, a grim acceptance settling over him. "Then we give him a different story to tell." His plan was the most ruthless yet. He wouldn't fight Silas, he would absorb him. He used the Foundation's networks to find Silas, who was living under an assumed name in Naples. Marcus flew there himself with Alex. They met Silas in a public cafe. He was a bitter, worn version of the man in the photo. Marcus didn't offer apologies or excuses. He offered a business proposition, a genuine partnership. A share in a new, legitimate import company focused on Italian artisan goods, with Silas as the face of it in Europe. A chance to build something in his brother's homeland, with his brother's name on the door. "This is blood money," Silas spat. "No," Marcus said calmly. "This is a future. You can spend the rest of your life trying to tear down my past, or you can help me build something that would have made Antonio proud. The choice is yours, but if you choose the past, you choose to fight me, and you will lose." It was the ultimate power move, transforming a vengeful enemy into a business partner, making him complicit in the very legacy he wanted to destroy. Silas, after days of deliberation, took the deal. The blackmail stopped. The photo and its story were sealed away in a new mutual non-disclosure agreement. The secret was safe, but now it was owned by 3 people instead of 1. In the end, Alex had her answer. The reward for finding a lost dog was never money or cars or security. It was accession. She was now a shareholder in the truth. She held a piece of the secret that underpinned the empire. That was the real, unbreakable contract. She stood at a crossroads. She could walk away with the fortune in her trust, the severance package, and her freedom. Or she could stay, with full knowledge of the man and the myth, and help steer the empire she now understood. She stayed, not because she was trapped, but because she chose the ledger. She chose to be an active entry, not a passive asset. She reformed the Foundation's board, bringing in real experts from animal welfare. She launched the Lost Pet Network, which within 6 months had raised the city's recovery rate by 15%. She became, in the eyes of the world, exactly what Marcus had promised, a visionary partner. A year later, they were in the penthouse. Leo slept by the fire. Marcus was reviewing a contract. Alex was reading a report on microchip subsidies. It was a quiet, ordinary moment in an extraordinary life. He looked up at her. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if you'd just taken the dog to a shelter?" "Every day," she said. "I'd probably still be worrying about rent, and you'd probably be a slightly lonelier, slightly more paranoid version of yourself." He smiled. "A fair trade." "Not a trade," she corrected gently. "A convergence." The final, surprising detail emerged months later, during an audit of the Foundation's earliest pre-launch expenses. Alex found a disbursement she didn't recognize. A payment to a private animal trainer, dated the week before she found Leo in the park. The description read, "Behavioral conditioning, recall override protocol." She confronted Marcus one final time. He didn't flinch. He was never supposed to run that far, he admitted. The trainer was supposed to ensure he stayed within a 2-block radius, that he'd come to a specific whistle. The handler got nervous, lost control of the lead earlier than planned. You were the contingency, the backup plan. You were always supposed to find him. So even her moment of heroism, her spontaneous decision to act, had been a variable in his equation. The only truly unpredictable part had been her. And that, he said, was what made her invaluable. The documentary of their lives would always have 2 scripts, the public one of philanthropy and partnership, and the private one of calculation, debt, and a secret on a boat. Alex had learned to live in the space between them. She had started as a dog walker who found a lost pet. She ended as the keeper of the story, the guardian of the ledger, and the only person who could look the billionaire in the eye and see not just the myth, but the man, and choose him anyway. The contract, it turned out, was for life, and for the first time, she felt like she had negotiated the terms. So what is the true price of a good deed? In the cold math of the world, a found dog is worth 93% chance of recovery, a microchip doubles the odds, and a posted reward creates a legally binding contract. But in the human heart, the ledger is written in different ink. Alex Carter's story is an extreme parable for a universal truth. Every connection we make, every act of kindness is a silent negotiation. We enter into invisible contracts every day, with the people we help, the strangers we trust, the lives we choose to touch. Most are small, forgotten by sunset, but some, the rare ones, become the architecture of our future. The tale of the dog walker and the billionaire reveals the 2 sides of every transaction. The public side, the heartwarming reunion, the generous reward, the fairy tale elevation. And the private side, the calculated risk, the buried history, the strategic love. We live in the tension between these 2 stories. We are all, in some way, both the finder and the found, the benefactor and the beneficiary, navigating the terms of our own unspoken agreements. This is the final, unbreakable clause in the contract of human connection. Once you see the machinery behind the magic, you can never unsee it. You can walk away from the gilded cage, or you can choose to stay and learn to operate the controls. Alex chose to stay. She chose to understand the ledger, to hold the secret, and to rewrite her own entry from a passive asset to an active author. Her story asks us the most dangerous question of all. If you followed the trail of your